there, this is part one of a two-part video series on the approximately 40 sounds in the English language and how you can represent them with letters. I'm also going to address the alphabet and the sounds that all the alphabet letters make. So it was a real revelation for me when I first learned to start teaching reading that there are a bunch of sounds in English that we don't have one letter to represent. And that's because English is not a language with one-to-one correspondence, which means we don't have a letter for every sound, and every letter doesn't make its own sound. So I'm going to try to address that today. I'm going to start with just the alphabet, since that's what most teachers teach in their classrooms, but I really want you to watch part two. That's the most important and magical part that will hopefully change how you think about phonics instruction. Some people don't like phonics instruction because they feel like it's taking the joy out of reading, that it's focusing on really specific skills that don't give students the big picture. And I would say that it's very important to do both of those things. You need to focus on the big picture, and you also need to teach students how to crack the code of English. So let's talk about how to crack the code. So I'm going to start with the alphabet. And in the alphabet, we have a lot of consonants, and then we have 5 vowel letters. And for those vowel letters, I'm going to teach you the short vowel sound. Short doesn't mean anything specific. We just call these sounds short sounds. And hopefully that will give you a new insight into how to teach those vowels, because often we just stick to the long sounds, which are the same as the letter names, A, E, I, O, U. And students don't get the important code tool they need to make sense of a lot of the small words that they see, like cat, big, dog, run, and net. So we're going to address that in our alphabet section. So here we go. The first short vowel sound is ah, ah, ah. And now we're going to move into some of the consonants in the alphabet. So we have b, 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 b. C is interesting because it is a redundant letter, which means that the sounds that it makes, we can use other letters to represent those sounds. So C could say k or s. Usually start teaching students k. But you can also, the sound k can be represented by K, and the sound s can be represented by S. So C is, it's redundant. Okay, now we have d, d, and this is how we represent d. S, S. So S is our second short vowel sound, and it's represented like this, S. That's how we represent. Okay, and the next sound is G, G, G. Now, G can also make the sound J, but we have another letter to represent the sound J, so we're going to leave that to the J. So for now, G. Next sound is H, and this is how we represent H. Okay, this is our next short vowel sound, I, I. And this is how we represent I, I. And our next sound is J, J. That's how we represent J. And then the sound K, K. And this is how we represent K, K. The next sound, O, O. That's how we represent O. The next sound is and this is how we represent Next sound is and this is how we represent Okay, now we have our fourth short vowel sound, aw, aw. And we represent aw like this, aw. Next sound, p, p, p. So you may have noticed that I'm not saying p, b, duh. That's because those are actually two sounds, p, p. And this can get confusing for students, so it's very important to isolate your consonants and try to pull them away from the vowel as much as possible. So, p, p, p. I almost did it there. P. Okay, so there's no English sound, qu. There's the sound k and w, and together they make qu. But we have an alphabet letter in English that we just use to put those two sounds together. So I put the Q with the U because it always goes with the U, and you can teach that it says qu. But just for your own information, there's no actual qu sound. It's made up of two sounds. Qu, qu. There's qu. Okay, the next sound in English is r. And we represent r with the letter R. Sometimes when we see the letter R, our instinct is to say er. And that's actually a vowel sound that we're going to teach in a minute. So this consonant letter R represents r. You don't say rain, you say rain. So when you're teaching to students, just keep that in mind. Okay, next sound that we have in English. And this is a nice, easy one. It's a favorite of students. They get to be snakes. Next one is t, t, t. And this is how we represent t, t. Okay, now we're at our final short vowel sound, which is a. And we represent it with a U. A. Our next sound is v. Okay, our next sound is w, which I find extremely hard to say without a vowel at the end. But here it is, w. Okay, now X is the next letter in the alphabet, but again, we don't have a sound in English that says x. X isn't one sound, it's actually two. So that's just for your own information. X is not representing a sound, it's representing two sounds. So when you see your young students writing the word box, B-O-K-S, that's a good thing because they're hearing all the sounds, the individual sounds in the word box. But our convention is to write x at the end of a word, or sometimes in the middle of a word with X. Okay, y. There's y, and that's a consonant, y. And next sound is z, which we represent z. Okay, in this section on the alphabet, I want to include three more sounds, which are consonant sounds that we represent with more than one letter. So in English, we have all these sounds. Some of them we can represent with just one letter, and some of them we need more than one letter to represent because we have 40 or so sounds, and our alphabet is only 26 letters, and as you noticed, 3 of those letters are pretended, the C, the X, and also the Q. So we have a couple more sounds that we need to find out how to write. So I think the easiest 3 to understand are ch, ch, ch. So this one is an easy one to start to teach students that sometimes single sounds are represented by more than one letter. And when we have 2 letters to represent a sound, we call it a digraph. And I'll explain the difference between digraph and consonant blends in the next part, running out of time. But this one says ch, ch. We also have sh, sh, sh. Again, a nice, easy one to teach students because SH almost always says sh. And so that's a good one to start with, sh. And then finally we have. And we also have another sound we represent with TH, which is Okay, that's all the time we have for this first segment. Tune in for round 2, where I will show you the magic that is digraphs that represent our other sneaky sounds in English.